hear the sounds? It means we back, baby. The WNBA season 2024 is at its end, but the news is just heating up for the offseason and beyond. This is the CHGO Sky Podcast, a function of CHGO Sports and the ALLCITY Sports Network. Whether you're in Chicago, in Phoenix, in Denver, in Philadelphia, in Dallas, and anywhere around the globe, the ALLCITY Sports Network has you covered, like my man, whether he's on the offensive side or the defensive side of the ball, because this is the man, the myth, the legend, the only basketball analyst out there with a perfect passer rating, Stephen Garner. Stephen, how you doing, man?
Blessed as always, Chris. Looking forward to speaking on just the season in its entirety. Feel like the season concluded in no better way than it possibly could have with the way that final series ended. Obviously, there's other things extracurricular-wise that took place, which I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit, but I do think that for as the magnitude of this season, the way that it ended, all of the bells and whistles in terms of adversity with the two best teams going at it, no better display of what this WNBA season was than kind of culminating it all with that moment.
I can't put it any better than that. It was an incredible series. We're gonna delve into it as much as we possibly can here today. And as you alluded to, with the extracurriculars that came up the day after, good timing by the Players Union. We'll get into that. And also the upcoming expansion draft, what effect that will have on our Chicago Sky, as well as that announcement about the WNBPA opting out of the current collective bargaining agreement. First things foremost, I'm Chris Pennant. Super Sarah Fictor's on the wheels of steel, working behind the scenes. Sarah's give us a what up.
What up, what up?
Thank you, Sarah.
Appreciate you, Sarah.
Subscribe to the show. Subscribe to CHGO Sports. Hit the like for us, for yourself, for your family, for all of your people who are disappointed that the season is over. But we hope that they're watching college, and we hope that they're getting ready for next season. And as always, follow us on Twitter at CHGO_Sky and at CHGO_Sports. I gotta ask one thing, because my classmate and an erstwhile analyst himself, Josh Felton, if you haven't checked out Josh on YouTube, please do. He's got his breakdown, I'm sure, coming out about Game 5 of this series if it hasn't already. But in his words, to paraphrase a bit, the Lynx got a little thrown under the bus at the end of Game 5. Now, that Game 5, considering what we saw all series long, lived up to the billing. But what did you think about the outcome and the way things went down in the deciding game of the series?
I think the obvious, there were some missed calls, whether that be the Breonna Stewart travel, whether that be Nafisa Collier, being touched every time she touched the basketball. Now, it's not my discretion as to whether she was fouled on a handful of those touches or not. I will say that the shot making displays that she put on, only way she wasn't making those shots that she lived at in that mid range right below the free throw line and in the paint would have been if she was fouled either at the catch point or at the release point of her shots in some capacity. So it's hard for me to not kind of bring that context into it all, but I do not want to discredit the New York Liberty in any capacity. Sandy Brondello, in a series that was going to be a chess match from the sideline before it even took place on the court between herself and Cheryl Reeve, two of the elder statesmen in terms of coaching experience in a winning level, especially in the WNBA the last decade. She brought out all her stuff. She took all the data that was compiled over the first 4 games, applied all the lessons learned in Game 5. They were able to navigate the waters from a double-digit deficit to ultimately breaking even before the end of regulation, and then just doing enough in overtime to win it. So don't want to discredit the New York Liberty and everything, but I can't help but acknowledge the shortcomings from the officiating crew in such a pivotal game.
And I wonder how much that plays into, the events that are going to transpire over next season with negotiations off the court. But I mean, it's not really, it's an evergreen thing, right? WNBA officiating, everybody has a problem with it, whether it's the players, the fans, the coaches, whomever. Even some of the officials probably have a problem with the officiating.
Yeah, you better believe it.
I want to point out, because with the school schedule, with other things off the court, so to speak, for myself, I didn't have a chance to watch every single game. But what stood out to me was watching game 3, which is where I would really say things turned, because that's when the Liberty got the 2-1 advantage, which meant that after game 1, they were never trying to stave off elimination. In the closing moments of that game, Sabrina Ionescu came of age. She completed before the series ended, I think she completed her hero's journey. And by that, I mean, she not only hit the 3 to give them the lead that they wouldn't relinquish, but she stopped that Courtney Williams drive to the lane. Sabrina of yesteryear is not doing that. Sabrina of yesteryear as a defensive target. This Sabrina that we've seen over this period of the season is stronger, more dedicated to playing defense, better at moving her feet laterally on defense. And I don't think that there's a scenario before this season where the Liberty coaching staff is comfortable leaving Sabrina on an island against Courtney Williams. Even in a play that there was set up, designed, they try to sneak some help over. They try to do something to dissuade that matchup. But they let Sabrina go one-on-one defensively. She handled the assignment, forced a pass. The Lynx didn't get off a good shot. And then Sabrina came down at the other end and did what we are expecting of her. She drained a clutch 3 with the same verve and disdain that you would have seen on the face of her mentor, Kobe Bean Bryant. That was the biggest moment of the series for me, even considering how good it was.
I don't disagree with you on that at all. I don't think that, even taking it a step further, in that particular game, I don't even think last season that play is drawn up for Sabrina to have the ball.
Ooh.
That ball is going to be in Breanna Stewart's hands. So I think that if we're talking about the timeline from last season to this season for Sabrina, that moment is definitely a sign of the times for her in terms of her skill development and just general growth as a basketball player. But I also think there's a level of trust that she has now with obviously her coaching staff and her teammates, that where they put the ball in her hands, there was no screen in sight. It was 1-4 flat, very classic early 2000s type of isolation up top. And they said, you got all the space in the world. You take the shot that you feel is going to put us in the position to win. She did just that. And I want to emphasize again that there was no screen involved, because Sabrina's never been a person that struggled with creating space. I just know that her handle wasn't nearly as tight as it was this season. For her to have gone to the move that ultimately allowed for her to get between the legs and then create some separation from Kayla McBride, who still defended it extremely well. She was within 2 feet of the release of the shot. Sabrina just created just enough space and did what she does best: knocked down a tough 3-point shot off the dribble in self-creation. And, you know, all the antics that came after that were much earned, because that's a big-time shot. You do that on the road, that's a lot of confidence. The difference between the series going, what was it, 2-1 versus you being down 2-1, that's if we look at how game 5 went, that's a huge difference in how everything kind of comes about. So shout out to her for that. I would also like to note that I mentioned coming into this series how important clutch play would be. And just looking at those numbers after the dust has settled, seeing obviously the New York Liberty, which congratulations to them for winning after knocking on the door last season. Clutch play, they were plus 1.2. And if you look at chronicling the series in its entirety, outside of game 2 where they won by double digits, outside of game 2, every other game was within 5 points. We had 2 games that went into overtime, a multitude of games just decided by single digits. Obviously, game 1, Courtney Williams puts on her Superwoman cape and just was the best player for the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter in the overtime period. In tandem with Nafisa Collier, they win that game in the clutch and then in the overtime in comeback fashion. Game 2 is game 2. We see Sabrina in game 3 put her Superwoman cape on. Game 4 is decided by, 2 points, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep.
And then you see what game 5 was. Just the way it started is the way it finished in overtime. This time, the New York Liberty winning. Plus 1.2 in the clutch. That's the slimmest of margins. And it really didn't even feel like it was a 1.2 that they would be a positive in. It felt like it was like 0.4. That's how close this series was played. The margin for error was non-existent for both teams. And that's probably what stood out most to me in the moments that came within that. Courtney Williams game 1, Sabrina game 3, and then games 4 and game 5 and 10 with one another.
This was a big postseason for the Liberty. Not just Sabrina. I want to talk about Sandy Brondello because I think her acumen as a head coach has been questioned over the past seasons. And honestly, I'm not saying to say I think. I've questioned her usage of Jonquel Jones a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes back to her time with Phoenix too.
Yep.
But this was a big, big postseason series for the Liberty. For the Liberty fans who have been there since the beginning, watched their team get to the mountaintop multiple times in previous iterations and present iterations and fall short. Not only did they win their first 2 series pretty handily, they slayed the dragon of the Aces. They pushed the previous queens off the mountaintop. And they haven't won a game 1 in finals histories yet. But that game 2, to win as big as they did and then win the tightly contested game 3 on the road, just like you said, that was big for them. That was really big. I think that Sabrina moment was emblematic of the team, of the franchise as a whole, that they were able to take a decisive lead so that when they lost game 4, it wasn't the end of things. They just had to play another game 5. And the fact that they did all this work in the regular season meant that they were playing game 5 at home. That was big for them too. So not only were they able to win, they were able to win in front of their home fans. Big series for Leonie Fibich.
Man,
12 from 26 from 3. We saw what she did in the second half of the season when she was playing against the Sky. She deserved all the time she got in the starting lineup. She's going to be a problem going forward. But I want to ask you about Sandy. What do you think about how she coached this postseason, this series, and how that bolsters her resume as a coach?
Well, for as illustrious of a coaching career in terms of impact on style of play and the different dynamics in style of play that she's brought from the Australian basketball realm to the stateside, and just adding nuance and dynamics and layers to how offenses play and how players are featured, how to manipulate advantages on the margins and how to utilize best players and how to utilize the quote unquote weakest of the 5 players on the offensive side. She had an amazing series on the from the brain trust side of things and the strings that she pulled. You look at Niara Sabally, for example, getting all of those minutes in overtime yesterday. That's a trick up the sleeve that she did not necessarily pull and tug on all that much. And I think the importance in that, if you look back and you look at the timeline of New York Liberty, obviously the most relevant piece being Courtney Vandersloot, losing her mother in the early portion of the series or the season. She had to take time away from the team to obviously be a human and deal with the human side of things. That at the same time is also when they had to discover new lineups, and they were able to lean more into the usage of Sabrina Ionescu because of her skill development. And I know we got a quick ad break coming up. We got to pay the bills, and we'll get more to this afterwards. But just kind of looking at that point in terms of that being a bookmark point in their season, and then seeing how it ultimately turned out down the stretch and in the most meaningful moments was important.
Most definitely. And you're right. We got to come up with the ad break in a second. But, man, there's so many storylines that I wish we could do a whole show on this.
Man.
Because we haven't even gotten to the Minnesota side yet.
Yeah.
Once again, as Chris P said, Napheesa Collier was in savage mode the season, really. She was a deserving runner-up, but she's always – when she's healthy, when she's playing, she's probably top 2, no matter what. So let's get to this ad break very quickly. And, of course, man, it's been a crazy season, as we talked about. But it's still hot out in Chicago. Somehow, some way, it's still pushing 80 degrees. So you know what it's time to do is choose chill and reach for an ice-cold Coors Light. When you hear the train whistle blowing, when you see the Rocky Mountains turn blue, and when you hear LL Cool J reaching out the window for you saying he needs love, that's when you pick up that ice-cold, refreshing Coors Light. Always cold packaged, always cold filtered, never frozen, and always as cool as the Rocky Mountains. Plus, you already know you can get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with this special offer from Instacart by going to instacart.com/CHGO Dunk. Once again for you, that's by going to instacart.com/CHGO Dunk. That's Coors Light, excuse me. It's CoorsLight.com/CHGO Dunk. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart. So when the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies, and when you embrace a chill mindset, it's good. It's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. So make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I'm going to take a quick second to note that Chris P. asked what I'm drinking. This is tea. This is lemon and honey tea. So I was just tripping over my words in that ad read. That was nothing else. I want to make it clear. And we also like to thank our friends at Empire Today, where you can get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a low price guarantee. Empire, the Chicago legends, the best place to get new flooring. Of course, they have copycats, but they can't be beaten on quality, service, and speed. So competitors will advertise lower quality products for lower prices. Empire just won't carry those. With the virtual floor designer, it's a great way to see how new floors will look in any space in your home, your apartment, wherever you're staying. Just snap a picture and instantly see how new floors will look in your room. And they service their own warranties. So if an issue does arise, just call Empire. You know the number. They service all warranties themselves. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners right now can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code CHGO. Restrictions do apply. See EmpireToday.com/CHGO for details. And if you're in the Chicagoland area or if you're planning to move here, use that number 773-588-2300 Empire. I had to say it, man.
Off memory.
I had to say it, man. Chris, I can't say it. Chris, we can't post that comment. We're not sponsored by that company. We can't post that. But I feel you though. But seriously, that lemon and honey tea, when you're in an industry where you got to talk, it's clutch. It keeps your throat soothed.
Facts.
Let's swing over to Minnesota, why don't we, man? Because I think the Lynx, they weren't as surprising. When you get Nafisa Collier back, it's hard to be surprising to anybody. But another top-flight job of coaching by Cheryl Reeve in a series where they were, I think, clearly the underdog. It had me wondering at the outset whether New York could win it all still. Because not only did you have Nafisa, the tandem that made it so big in Chicago last year, Courtney Williams and Alana Smith doing their thing too. What did you think of Minnesota in this series?
I thought for multiple stretches that Minnesota looked like the best team in the WNBA, which is no different than they looked at multiple stretches in the regular season, as well as through multiple stretches of the playoff. Cheryl Reeve is an assassin from the sidelines. I hope people understand that it doesn't matter what roster iteration she has. If they're healthy, she's going to squeeze every last drop of juice and optimizing that group that she possibly can. She'll evolve over time. She'll adjust over time. She's not stubborn to the extent to where she won't pivot from some of her own principles to get the most out of her players. There's no better example than her talking to Courtney Williams before Game 4 and telling her to get in her bag. This is Cheryl Reeve, a middle-aged white woman using the vernacular of everybody that's younger than her. That's the type of touch and reach that I'm speaking to. She's not too stuck in her ways to where she's not willing to pivot to win. She knows that she signed Courtney Williams, and I mean she because she's also the general manager, brought Courtney Williams in because she knew that this Minnesota Lynx team come playoff time would need somebody else that was reliable and efficient enough to make shots off script in a way that won't be over-reliant on Nafisa Collier creating everything or even Kayla McBride creating everything. You put Courtney Williams in that system, she turns into one of the best assist players in the WNBA in just her second season playing point guard, mind you. I want to make sure we overemphasize that because that's not a small feat in any capacity. But you get to the finals and you start to see the remnants of what made Courtney Williams an all-star caliber player early in her career in a winning environment now with Cheryl Reeve and the Minnesota Lynx. talk about Cheryl reaching in, speaking to her in a language that would be resonated by Courtney Williams. And she goes out and does what she did in that first half of game 4, ultimately setting them up to win by just 2 points, mind you, crossing the finish line going into game 5. It's little moments like that, in addition to them being comfortable enough based off of all the data compiled in the regular season and Commissioner's Cup championship matchup with the Liberty, to be comfortable enough and nuanced enough to put Bridget Carlton, first of all, in the starting lineup, but secondly, to task her with guarding Breanna Stewart from the forefront and being able to live off of principles in terms of their switching scheme to cover up for the conceded advantage that is Bridget Carlton trying to guard Breanna Stewart in the post. Sometimes they sent soft double teams. Sometimes it was an all-out double team. Sometimes it was just aggressive stunts met by rotations around to keep their shell intact and still get up solid contests at the three-point line. Little things like that, in addition to just figuring out how to feature Nafisa Collier to where she's not seeing double teams ad nauseum, so she can still have her efficient looks at the basket and not have to work as hard, offensively and defensively. Salute to Cheryl Reeve, following up another gold medal in Team USA women's basketball history by taking her team to the finals after they were picked 9th on most metrics in terms of the projections of the team, which was insane to begin with. Salute to the Minnesota Lynx. Whole lot more we could speak on. I think there's no better place to start than Cheryl Reeve and the strings that she pulled from the sideline, and then trickling down to Nafisa Collier, Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, Kayla McBride, and so on and so on and so on.
That's the thing, man. Like, I don't hate on Cheryl. I hate on the Lynx because I just, I want the Sky to have a close rival. I think it's unfortunately going to have to be Indiana. And I only say unfortunately because I think Minnesota's a better measuring stick, and also just because of the baggage that's come with, as we've seen this season. Mm-hmm. But gosh, man, Cheryl somehow keeps doing it, just continues doing it. And I'm glad that you pointed out that she is one of the last now coaching GMs in the league. As we saw the Sky split it, we've seen other teams split that role, but Cheryl might be able to do it. I think whenever she decides to retire or move on from the Lynx, I think they split that role. But Cheryl's proven that she can take on these tasks, multiple tasks in a year, both coach GM and coach of Team USA, which entailed her leaving the team proper for a number of months at a time, and still get within a few minutes of winning another championship in Minnesota. And I want to reiterate, that Game 3 win for the Liberty was not cheap. That gym and Target Center was packed. Those Lynx fans still remember the glory days of Maya Moore, Simone Augustus, Rebecca Brunson, Lindsay Whalen, all that, and they were hungry. Yeah. They were hungry for another one. So Cheryl had her team work. I think the only knock is that, they maybe couldn't have capitalized on as many three-point opportunities as New York, but you look at the numbers, both basic and advanced, it was about as even as it gets across the board. So, like I said, man, put a pin on it, because I know we got to move on, even though it's so much fun to talk about this series.
Man, yeah, that's just to put a pin on it. I hope that everybody that started watching women's basketball this season understands that this league is not solely centralized around one player, whether that be Asia Wilson, whether that be Caitlin Clark, whether that be Angel Reese. There's just entirely too much talent from the sidelines to obviously the players on the court for it to be centralized to just one player. And I feel like more than anything, at multiple moments, we've come to realize that Asia got a lot of attention. Obviously, MVP, again, was the reigning champ until yesterday. This series didn't even have anything to do with her. And you see the level of play that was there. Same thing about Caitlin Clark. One of the best rookie seasons of all time. For my money, the second best rookie season of all time. Did not have anything to do with her. And you see the level of play, everything that came with that. Same thing with Angel Reese. One of the most dominant rookie seasons ever. The series had nothing to do with her. You see all of the attention that came. You see the level of play. You see the intrigue. You see the draw. It's the league comprehensively. It's not specific to one player. And I feel like that's the thing. If I could overemphasize anything that's not basketball related, it's that in particular.
Well said, man. Once again, congratulations to the New York Liberty for winning their first championship in franchise history, one of the original franchises of the WNBA, and because we're sentimental in this thing. Shout out to Courtney Vandersloot getting another ring, man. Sluty got a second dub. Love to see it. All right, we got a few minutes before the ad break, so let's get into our next section in earnest. Steven, I know we had some you have player reviews to go over, but we also have to talk. I think this is a good way to put that in conjunction with the upcoming expansion draft that'll be happening in early December for the Golden State Valkyries. All teams can protect up to six players on their roster. And when we were talking this out, it's a show where you want to have some debate, but we ended up with the same six players that we wanted to protect on the Sky's roster.
Yeah, we did, and it was funny to see that when we were talking about our pre-podcast notes and whatnot. But at the same time, when you look at the way that the season went, the way players stacked up, what kind of lineups fit together best, and things of that nature, I feel like this made entirely too much sense as far as who the deemed top six would be. I think there are some arguments, like you mentioned, in conversation for other players to be included in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like we settled on the best six that you possibly could. Now, obviously, there's decisions to be made within that, as some players have pending contracts that will have to be tended to. But I think the big dynamic is that the Sky have as much cap space as any team in the W going into a very, very pivotal offseason. And I mentioned that because the breadth of talent available, but also while you still have Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese on their rookie contracts, you have to capitalize on this roster, from coaching staff to front office to facilities and everywhere in between.
That's the most important thing. You've got to capitalize now from a management standpoint while you can keep costs down. You know, I don't like talking like that. You know me. The listeners of the show know me. I want to see people get their money, and I want to see the wealth distributed as much as possible. But from a purely management standpoint, you have Angel and Camilla on low-dollar contracts right now. You want to make a run, a deep playoff run, before 2027 when their options kick in. You want to try and get something going for 2026, which means you have to build now for 2025. Even if you get considering the way this year ended, if you're a few games under 500 and you make a surprise run in the playoffs, I think you're set up. And I think I want to see if I can get this tweet up because it's pretty wild. And I know some people in the comments are talking about it, whether obliquely or specifically. I think Angel's already doing some recruiting. Like you're not
believe it.
You're not gonna get necessarily Brianna or Nafisa, but when she came through in that dual jersey, man, Joe, Angel is not shy. We already saw her making the overtures to Gabby Williams during the season, but she's ready to get some people on board for sure. For sure. We're coming close to the ad break. I don't want to get too far into it. Just for the sake of everybody, our picks for the protections on the Sky roster were Angel, Camilla Kennedy, no surprise there, Lindsay Allen, Michaela Onyenwere, and Elizabeth Williams. And if anybody's surprised about Elizabeth Williams, especially being on the last year of deal, I think the point for me was that she is going to be on the last year of her deal next year. Yeah. And so you keep her. If you find a trade partner, you can trade her as long as you get back solid assets. But you can still use her while she's here as a mentor for Camilla in the post.
Yep. And in addition to that, it's not just for that, but she also is still one of the best defenders in the entire WNBA. From rim protection to defensive anchorship to hedging to deflections to block shots to steals. She is just a top 5 paint defender and just general defender in the WNBA, something you can't put a value on. And she's firmly in that top 6 for numerous reasons, extending well past those 4 lines on the basketball court too.
For sure. All right, let's go to the break. And let's talk about our partners over at Sunnyside, the best cannabis dispensary this side and on the other side of the northern border. Whether you're in South Beloit, whether you're in Champaign, Sunnyside's got you covered with quality strains and top flight brands. Whether you're a novice, they've got people to help you out. If you're an expert, as we said, they've got 100 different strains to choose from, including, since summer's evidently still here, that Good News Island Tea Time vape. And let me tell you, it is a quality purchase. And it's easy to order online. I've done it myself. If you order online from Sunnyside, 10 minutes later, they'll send you a notification. You can go pick things up, and it's an easy process to go in, out, and as they used to say, get on with your life. So check it out, Sunnyside, anytime in the city, anytime South Beloit. If you're down in Champaign, you can check them out too. And again, check out those Good News Island vibes, Puff Puff Paradise. So visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every single day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. We're still doing this deal. It's an incredible deal. We're still doing it for you. 50% off your first 3 online purchases. So enter the promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions do apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day. Only for ages 21 and over or Illinois medical card holders. All right, man. The Bears are off to a good start. Oh, you got it? Go for it, man. Let's go.
One quick thing. We done with the ads, right?
Oh, we got our CHGO, our diehards. We got to get to those real quick. My fault. I thought you had to read, man. You know.
Excuse me on that. I had something else from our segment before we went to the break. That's my bad.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
I ran off script. My fault.
That's the show. That's what the show is supposed to be. For any Bears fans that did not make the London trip, I understand your heartbreak, but you still have a chance to go somewhere even better than London. Phoenix, Arizona, to see our man Steven and check out the Bears going head-to-head with the Arizona Cardinals on November 3rd, renewing that rivalry when the Cardinals were the Southside team and the Bears played at Wrigley Field. If you are not 80 years old, still go to the game. It's dope. Our trip package includes a 3-night stay at a 4-star Phoenix hotel, a Q&A with Bears alumni, an all-inclusive tailgate party, round-trip transportation to the game, and an upper-level game ticket as well. And this is the special that we just going to break out for y'all tonight that y'all haven't heard of yet. You get to catch a touchdown pass from our very own Stephen Garner, man. That's right. You heard it. You heard it here first. We're going to be out in the tailgate. Steven's going to be out there throwing. And that's not a Nerf football. That's not the Nerf air raid. He's going to be throwing up a real football for y'all to get up underneath the catch like you DJ Moore. So reserve your spot at the party at truefantravel.com. Now limited spots are available. And even if you can't make the game, we got a deal for you to be a diehard with CHGO. So we're giving you a special offer. You can become a CHGO Sky diehard today for just $4 a month billed annually. For those of y'all who are past arithmetic and trig, I get it. It's hard to do regular math when you got to pay bills. But that's only $48 a year. That's $48 a year. You get a free T-shirt, access to exclusive written content, plenty of discounts, and access to CHGO's Discord Lounge where we all hang out and talk CHGO sports. There's a limited time offer, so act now. Visit chgo.com/intro to sign up today. That's, again, visit allchgo.com/intro to sign up today and become a CHGO diehard. All right, man. I stepped on your point. What you got?
Nah, you good. I just ran back to the notes, and I had to double-check who my top 6 were. I actually did not have Lindsey Allen.
Oh, okay. We got some debate. Let's go.
I had Rachel Banham in my top 6. So I had Angel, Camilla, Kennedy, Rachel, Ewell, and Michaela. And so to explain my reasoning for that, obviously anybody that's followed me, that's followed the show, knows how highly valued and high praise I gave Lindsey Allen for her point guard efforts this season. Post-Olympic break, she was like a top 5 point guard. She probably peaked at like top 3 at multiple stretches. The way that she was commanding the offense, the way that she was defending, the way that she was scoring the basketball, even for herself, she was playing some elite level basketball down the home stretch when they needed it most. My reasoning for not having her in the top 6 in terms of the expansion is because I feel like they might be able to find something that's a little more sustainable or give them more spacing from that guard position in free agency. Now, obviously, you still have a need for a backup point guard, but I feel like Lindsey Allen's not a backup point guard. I think she's gonna find the money that she deserves elsewhere, and I think that she's ultimately gonna be a starting point guard somewhere going into the next season, based off of the film and everything that she put forth in terms of her impact numbers. So I think that the way that you're building this roster, you want an elite level guard that can space the floor around everything that obviously Angel and Camila do in the paint, especially with Kennedy Carter in the mix as well. Get somebody that can pull the strings from the point of attack offensively and kind of put those players in positions, but still be able to score for themselves on consistency. I think you take steps forward in terms of trying to be a top 8 team in the W come playoff time.
So this is interesting because I went back and forth a bit with Rachel and Lindsay.
Yeah.
For pretty much those reasons you said. I had to eat my words somewhat after the Marina Mabry trade. Rachel Banham was quality on this team. I think she was only able to show it those last few games of the season. But I think she's a good presence in terms of team chemistry, and she's a bona fide three-point threat. I think we all knew that, but she's a bona fide three-point threat, especially when teams space well. Even honestly, when the Sky, who had issues with offensive spacing in terms of getting the perimeter shots, Rachel was still able to knock down some prolific shots in terms of just like how many she put in. I still think just the way that Lindsey Allen played, the way that she brought so much stability to the point guard position, if you bring in somebody who's expected to contribute pretty quick, you still have you can set up a scenario where they can split time over a 40-plus game season. And if X player in the draft gets injured or isn't at the level that you want, you can have Lindsay who can be that anchor at the point guard position for a longer amount of time until X player is ready or until you work them into the lineup. So that's really my reasoning on that. I think there's an argument that could be made for Izzy, but as much as I really like Izzy, I think you can find a player of her caliber elsewhere, which again, I like Izzy. That's not saying anything about her as a person. I think it's okay if you leave her unprotected.
They're just so crowded in the front court. They double down, and that makes things tough. I do think that Izzy provided a template for what they need to be targeting going forward, which is a floor spacing front court piece. They can obviously do front court type things / wing type things on defense and offensively as well, particularly in spacing the floor. I do think that they can find someone who kind of fits that position a little bit better than Izzy did. But like you said, and like I'll continue to tap the sign on, that's no indictment against Izzy in any capacity. It's just kind of the way that the business set up. She was brought in when this team was in a complete different iteration, and she unfortunately got hurt. And then in her second season, as soon as she comes back healthy, the entire team context have shifted past where you could have potentially even expected for it to at the end of 2023 coming into 2024. So just the way that the business works, especially as a reserve, if the team context that you were brought in with has shifted once your contract ends, that makes things a little bit different in terms of the negotiation process that's to come. So,
I mean, talking about the negotiation process in terms of contracts, like makes me want to lead into the information about the CBA, but I'm seeing some comments in here specifically about Angel Reese and her thoughts on her potential thoughts on asking for a trade. Before I ask you that, I think we should discuss what you can assume and what you cannot assume in the age of social media. Now, Angel's been very active for sure, but don't assume just because she's not talking about the Sky that she wants a trade. Angel is a mogul in the way that none of us who are present in this space right now can imagine or would imagine being at the age of 22. That's just for real. We got to accept that. It is what it is. And I don't think that she is necessarily going to talk about the team once the season ends. But I don't think that is, and I don't think that's indicative of her not wanting to be a part of the organization anymore already. Yes, the Teresa Weatherspoon firing would weigh on her for sure. That was not just her first professional coach. It was a coach that put a lot of faith and trust in her. And we have talked on this podcast, check our last episode, about how sudden and I think not a bad move, a quick move for the Sky it was to take that step in terms of firing Teresa Weatherspoon. Now, I'm not saying that we just move on, but we can't speculate on things that we don't know about. If we had information, verifiable information, that Angel was actively seeking a trade or had put those kind of feelers out there, we would say. And I think, honestly, there's other professionals in the space. Again, we talk about journalism, that if they had any inkling of that, it would have come out. So I don't want people to assume. Like, don't speculate if you don't have much basis. That being said, James Wilson, if we could pull up that quote from earlier before the Sky worry about player contracts, they need a coach. I think that's right on the money. I think this is the time where Jeff Pagliocca has to get the person in the coaching role that he vibes with, that he synthesizes with, that they're in synergy, they're in lockstep before you worry about player contracts. And you can get a coach possibly after the expansion draft, but I don't think it's ideal.
I'll say this, and I'm tiptoeing my words for a good reasoning. I spoke greatly to the greatness of Sandy Brondello. I feel like she might not have been the coach of the New York Liberty going into next season if they did not win this championship. Now, obviously, that's a quick turnaround from what was Sabrina's coming to age season, the season they lost obviously to the Chicago Sky in the first round in 2022, and then obviously them having a super team in 2023 and now in 2024. But I feel like there was a lot of pressure from the Liberty front office to like letting her know, hey, like we got all this money invested in this team, all of these players at the peak of their powers. We got to get it done. And, you know, to see her come to task the way that she did and execute, kudos to her. I feel like that's a name in terms of coaches that might have potentially came available who the Sky will obviously have had interest in multiple capacities. We can talk about the optics and how going from a black woman to a white woman coaching the team in the city of Chicago and things like that will take place. That's very, very relevant. But I will say, speaking from the basketball side of things, Sandy Brondello would have been the exact type of coach that the Sky would have hoped to brought in a similar vein with all the context that I just brought to conversation. I think Stephanie White also would have been the same type of coach that the Sky would have appreciated potentially at least negotiating with. Coaches that know how to get the most out of a team offensively with modern styles of play that can also optimize having multiple front court or paint-oriented bigs in their front court. That's exactly what you want. That's the ice that the Sky are going to have to break going forward to optimize the Angel and Camila tandem, especially with urgency while they're both on their rookie scale contracts, and you can build the roster out around those two. That leads to the comment that you mentioned before we got to speak into this. The Sky they're in a very interesting situation. They have to do what's best for them on the basketball side of things in terms of optimizing who's on the roster, but they also are going to be held to account from whoever it is that they ultimately decide to coach this franchise by the supporters of the team. The optics and the context on which Teresa Weatherspoon was let go didn't really vibe with the pulse of everybody that's supporting this team from the fan side of things. So now it doesn't take a genius to see on Twitter that even seeing, Teaspoon supporting the Liberty, the franchise she played for while she was in the W and went to the championship with, crying because she feels like she felt like she was a part of everything that came to this ultimate moment, which she was 110%. You have to find somebody that's going to suffice to the crowd in terms of the people that are facilitating money to your franchise, but you also have to strike an accord with what makes sense on the basketball side of things. It's not going to be easy, but that's what you all are getting paid for. And now it's time to be held to account. You made a grown person decision Now you have to make a grown person decision in response to that initial decision and check off all the boxes. That's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. And I think this franchise needs it going forward in terms of getting some stability.
Let's get those player reviews out, man, because I know you've been working hard on this, and we got graphics for those. While we have our time left here, let's start with Angel Reese, just going over her season. Quite obviously, as we see, look at that. Hey, Bears fans on the show, you see what we did for y'all. Look at that. We got Angel in the jersey, man. But Steven, just go over these stats. We know Angel finished second in Rookie of the Year voting, but what did these bear out about her season overall, her first season in the W?
Historic. She did things on a historic scale on the collegiate level, to the extent of winning a national championship. And she brought a whole lot of those qualities, from leadership to style of play to gritty identity stamping dynamics that she brought on the defensive end of the floor. That hardworking blue collar mentality that's extremely synonymous with the city of Chicago, dating back throughout the entire city's history. Yes, she struck all of these different accords, even from the cultural side of things, being able to identify with so many of the people that walk the streets of Chicago, especially women in particular, to show that you could be pretty with the glitz and glamour, and you could also have a hard-working mentality on the basketball side of things and whatever your occupation might be. I think her dynamics haven't even fully optimized in the Chicago market, but looking at her on the court, the sky is the limit for Angel. It's just there. It's always there. It's just so easy to tap that sign.
I know.
It is. I think it's accurate for her just because we saw all the impact that she had, and this is without her having the jump shot to the level that she will even coming in the next season, yet alone whenever she decides that it's her prime of her career. Talk about the finishing at the basket. Angel would tell you all before even me or Chris could that she left a lot of food on the table in terms of scoring the basketball. I don't see any reason why at her peak she's not putting up 18 and like 12 or 13.
Woo.
That's easy. That's
tough.
That's easy because she grabs so many rebounds. She starts getting to the 60-65% range on her second chance opportunities, whether it's from her own miss or from someone else's miss. That's enough to make up that difference in scoring average from 12 to 18 alone right there at the volume of rebounds she was grabbing. You look past that and you start looking at her continuing evolution in terms of screening and the impact as a screener on the ball and pick and roll, and then the ability to make decisions as a playmaker on the short roll. You start looking at the different layers of her game that she left a little bit more to be desired in, and her starting to more thoroughly check those boxes off as her development skill-wise continues to evolve. You're looking at a perennial all-star, a perennial all-WNBA player generally and on the defensive side of things, and you're looking at somebody that's going to be in the race for MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in succession with one another when she starts getting closer to her prime.
Now, before I move on to the next one, because I know we're reaching close to the end of the show, because I want to get all these in here. When you look at a player, when you said 18 and 12, 18 and 13, look at a player who averaged 20 points, 9 rebounds, and totaled, let me make sure here, 113 stocks on the season. That would be comparable to what we could see from Angel Reese, maybe a little bit better. That player finished second in MVP voting this year.
Correct. Yep.
That's what you ideally, and this is to say nothing of the 3-point shooting, which is always kind of hovered around 30, 33%. That's what we could be seeing in Angel Reese. That's what we could be seeing. I want y'all to think about that. We could be seeing a Nafisa Collier type level of production in Angel Reese.
Yep.
Marinate on this.
I think she's the perfect comp in this particular lens that we're speaking to, because Nafisa, a whole lot of what she got in MVP conversations came from what she did defensively, which to that point, she's literally the Defensive Player of the Year for a whole lot of those reasons. The way that she raised the level and the ceiling and the level of play for her team when she was on the court offensively, but also defensively, she was it. She was that. And Angel is already in that stratosphere in terms of the impact that her team had defensively when she was on versus when she was off. and how much they relied on her when she was on the floor on that end too.
Let's show Camila Cardoso, because we saw Camila come on in the second half of the season. Oh, go for it, man. What you got?
What would be? Because I know I'm kind of speaking to the details. What would be your player grade for Angel Reese this season?
I think just based on where we ended up for her rookie season, I'd say B plus, maybe an A minus, just because I was so surprised, as you all know, from what we saw in the beginning part of the season when she went on the double-double run, the way that she contributed early on and often. I would be fine with a B plus, because I think that there were some things that she did leave on the table, but understanding the context that she came in, coming off of 9 straight months of play, pretty much, it was hard to ask for much more. So I would say B plus.
I respect it. I'm giving her an A plus, and she almost gets 2 pluses, because I don't know if I've seen a rookie and their defensive impact translate from the collegiate level to the WNBA level so seamlessly, from individual defense to as a help defender, and the impact within the deflection rate, and obviously the rebounding being a huge part of playing defense. She's different. She's just different. And for me, she gets an A plus for that. Obviously, I'm acknowledging, as I did, that she left food on the table in terms of her offense, but we knew she was going to be rough around the edges on offense. We knew her hallmark and calling card was rebounding and defense. And she quite literally had a historic rebounding season, not just for a rookie, but for a WNBA player, period. Something that's her identity. And then the defense translated nearly as well as the rebounding did. So for those reasons alone, if a player is playing to their identity to those extents, even with the weaknesses included, it's got to be an A plus for me. But if we're transitioning to Camila now,
let's do it.
It was tough. Obviously, she got hurt early in the season, missed a handful of games, stagnated some of her growth in terms of her integrating herself to the W level, because she wasn't able to practice in training camp and in that early portion of the regular season. However, shortly thereafter, when she did return to the lineup in early June for the Chicago Sky, obviously we saw Elizabeth Williams go down with injury that would conclude her season. That naturally put Camila in a position of where she had to start, and she was, like I said, thrown in the fire in terms of her skill development and growth, and she had to learn on the fly. I think that Camila showcased, as with Angel, an ability to be dominant in the paint in multiple stretches of the season, and to extents that Angel didn't necessarily show in the ways that she did, she was able to show, especially in the latter stretch, efficiency on that high volume of attempts that she was able to compile and garner from the paint. And in addition to all of those things, and we're talking about Camila comprehensively, I think defensively, even I underrated in watching her college film how much potential scheme versatility there is with her. We saw a lot of drop coverage. Her footwork and the angles at which she played at over the course of the season got better and better and better through the finish line. She got her hands up and got a lot of more deflections and steals in that context too. But where I was kind of underrating her, in addition to that, was on offense with her post-ups. Obviously, you think she's getting the ball in the paint, she's scoring. It's not quite that easy, though, when you're seeing the same rate of double teams that Brittany Griner was this season in terms of the defense committing to you. And the caveat within all of that, she did leave food on the table in terms of finishing, but her playmaking abilities that she showed and garnering the attention of multiple defenders, and not just making a pass to optimize your teammates, but making the correct pass. Not always the pass to the person that threw the ball to you in the post. Sometimes making that 45 skip across the court to where you're burning the sink and field rotations from the backside, or making that pass to the opposite corner where you posted up at and just completely burning the defense. She's made those little strides in her processing that I didn't know she had, and she showed a quick process and dynamic to her game that I feel like is going to set her up to be one of the best bigs by the end of her second season.
I want to go over some numbers with y'all real quick for Camila Cardoso, because she started her season in June. She had that really nice performance, I think, her first or second game against the Fever.
First game.
But
TV.
My man, thank you. Right on it. Right on it. I wouldn't expect anything less. Her first 2 months of the season, 18 games total, 15 starts, averaged about 8 points per game, about 8 rebounds, maybe a touch under, and about an assist per game. August and September, 14 games, 14 starts. Now, granted, there's some increase in minutes here, but very slight. Averaged just under 12 points per game, just about eight rebounds per game, and about 2 assists per game. So you talk about making the right pass out of those double teams, but you also talk about an increased frequency of getting to the free throw line, increasing those makes at the free throw line, keeping the same percentage of offensive and defensive rebounds, and increasing that assist percentage while holding firm in terms of blocks per game.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about Brittney Griner, something that always stood out to me is that BG doesn't get a ton of boards. And it's, whether it's just her game is not predicated on that, which really is not. It's always been a kind of face-up jump shooting, get to the lane game, and in latter stages now shooting from outside. She's never been like a under the head under the rim, like battling for rebounds kind of player like you see with Bree Jones, even like you see with Jonquel Jones to some degree. And I think that even with the new coach, that's what you build on with this team, because if you have two players of Angel and Camila's caliber who are going to go to the rack for you on both ends every single time, and Camila, who's already so good at passing out of double teams, you surround them with shooters. You do kind of a takeoff of what I always hate the comparisons, but this is the one that sticks out to me the most. You pretty much have two players that you can have shooters orbit, have one other, decently rebounding guard or combo guard, and you've got a formula like the 09 Orlando Magic.
Mm.
And that team got to the finals. So I love what Camila showed. I think, considering that she came off of an injury, I'd be willing to give her an A- because I hate to give her a better grade than Angel. So I'm going to say a B, maybe a B plus. But the improvement in the second half of the season was really the driving force for me. She looked so good when the calendar turned over to late summer.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of great points with Camila and her very impressive rookie season. A lot of stretches, a lot of dynamics of the game. She did not look like a rookie in any capacity. She actually looked like a veteran in multiple different dynamics if you watch her film. I do think that she, like I said, is rough around the edges, particularly offensively. I'll start by saying I'll give her a solid B, maybe potentially a B plus. Kind of on the fence there with those two, but she's in that realm for me. I think that she can be better with her screening in terms of the angles, allowing for her guards to play more pick and roll on offense. I think she can be better in terms of just getting more reps and playing in pick and roll. We talk about her rim running and how impactful, and really she's the best rim running big in the entire WNBA already.
Yeah.
As soon as she got healthy and played her first game, that was just abundantly obvious. And the stress and strain that puts on teams within their defensive transition principles. Oftentimes it's a guard that's the first person back. If Camila is the first big that crosses half court, that's an automatic advantage. Either there's a double team coming or she's going to get a catch and finish for an easy 4 to 6 points a game once she gets to her prime, off of that dynamic alone. But I think she can be better, like I said, with screening and pick and roll. That's going to naturally help unlock her more as a roller in terms of scoring in the paint off of things that are not post-ups. I think she can be better. She can be better used in terms of how she's featured on offense to help to aid her playmaking and her prowess that comes with that dynamic too. And then the other big thing, obviously, being the finishing at the basket. She gets a lot of touches. She does a solid job doing her work early in terms of getting a seal with having 1 foot, if not 2 feet in the paint. And she does a great job getting that hand up, letting the guard know, like Randy Moss, I'm wide open here, throw it here, I got it. And then off that catch, like I said, she's making quick decisions as a passer. I would like to see her get and eliminate the catch and hold scenarios when she's going to score. That same quick processing that she uses when she's catching and passing to counter a double team, I think she can apply to her catch, turn and face, or catch and get to a quick hook shot game in terms of scoring for herself. She's going to get fouled. And I think when she puts a defender in those can-be-right scenarios with more frequency, we're really going to start to feel her dominance. She might get 8 points a game from the field and another 6 to 8 points on average from the free throw line once she gets to her peak of her powers. So I'm kind of looking forward to those dynamics. And like I said in the open with Camila, her also kind of showcasing more scheme versatility. We saw Brianna Jones with the Connecticut Sun spend a lot of time at the level of the screen, and that kind of caught teams by surprise early in the season, considering she's a bigger defender, but she's not without good footwork in terms of her athleticism. I think Camila strikes that same accord, but she's an even better athlete in terms of her footwork. She's talked about her soccer background and her ability to move around with nimble ankles and be quick on her feet. I think that's something that's going to make her unique. Maybe to any potential big that's come across the WNBA so far. So, like I said, the grade for her, I give her a B to B plus. But you want to talk some Kennedy?
Yeah, man. Let's talk Kennedy because it's so good. But that's got to close us out, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of keeping it quick because he was a whole podcast on each one of these three players. But to condense it all, if you could get that Kennedy Carter graphic up, just looking at what she did this season. First thing that stands out for me, points in the paint, points in the paint, points in the paint. There was no guard, unless you're speaking to Kalia Copper, who would be adjacent to, but not necessarily better than Kennedy Carter this season, then getting downhill, getting below the free throw line and scoring on efficiency, impact, and on volume. Look at the and ones at the bottom of that match the paint points. Third as a guard in the WNBA and ones is absurd. That's insane. That's just, it's ridiculous. That speaks to literally no one being able to stay in front of Kennedy for once she catches the ball, essentially. And that's also would be ignoring the types of help that she saw all season. She never got a catch to where there weren't two players loaded up in the gaps in terms of help. Some of that was because of the lack of spacers that the Chicago Sky had, but even more of that is just the abundant talent that she was and how defense just had to try to get the ball out of her hands. She was still able to always blow by her initial defender, split that second help defender, either play make for herself or play make to others, and always keep the Sky in the best position that they could on offense. They were at their best when she was on the floor because of her offense, and you also saw her clutch play on those graphics as well. She was one of the best clutch players this season. Kennedy's walked herself into a major bag going into the 2025 season.
That's the biggest thing. As much as we talked about Angel, as much as we talked about Camila, as much as we talked about so many Sky players this season, I would say Kennedy Carter was the team MVP this year.
Yep, I agree.
The way that she played, especially when she got into the starting lineup, carried the team for multiple stretches. She found herself as a player. I think she found herself as a complete person. That's another reason why it is tough, as Nola Moneysaver was saying, losing Teresa Weatherspoon. That's why my number one pick for protecting, and I think everybody who's a Sky fan would say the same. You protect Kennedy Carter right off the jump. We didn't really get a chance to, unfortunately, get to the news about the collective bargaining agreement, but in case you missed it, the WNBA Players Association, the Women's National Basketball Players Association, the WNBPA, chose to opt out of the collective bargaining agreement, which means that it will expire at the end of the 2025 season next year. So those two camps, the WNBA and the Players Association, will be negotiating as we go forth from here on in until at such time where they either reach a deal or whether they come to an impasse. So any quick thoughts on that, Stephen, what you can expect to see over the offseason?
Wow. Round of applause to the players exercising their power. They are the money makers of this league. They are what makes this league go. Not the people that are sitting in cubicles or sitting in press row or sitting in the upper stage boxes where a lot of the owners sit. It's them. They are the money makers. They make this machine go. I appreciate the evolution of the mindset of athletes, especially on the W side of things, spearheaded by obviously the two players that were the best. Well, they weren't the best because Stewie didn't bring it up to the level that she needed to, but two of the better players in the WNBA this season, in Nafisa Collier, obviously, and Breanna Stewart, spearheading all of that with their efforts in terms of social justice, going back to the Wubble to even now. And I think that them exercising this is going to be a big bookmark moment in the story of women's basketball, because they're going to be getting closer to getting their just due, what they deserve, and I couldn't be more happy for them.
I'm excited too, man. I'm excited too. Not just at the potential of a strike, which you could see so many things, but Talking to the aforementioned Josh Felton, I think they got the leverage. I think they got all the leverage in the world, considering what we saw. A lot of it is going to be on the younger generation, even if they're not in leadership positions, to step up and hold that rank and file line. But yeah, we got to see it. I'm excited, boy. I'm excited to see that, boy.
Hold those people in the suits and dresses to account. Same way they hold y'all to account to play X amount of games for your contract and all of that. Hold them to that same account to get you that bag that your skill sets and your all-world talents deserve.
Keep that same energy.
These are the best, some of the best basketball players, not just specific to one sex. These are some of the best basketball players and general athletes in the entire world. Act like it.
Keep that same energy, man. And the fans, think about the bosses that made you come in when you were sick back in the day. Exactly. Think about all those benefits you got getting cut. When you think about all these players that are making so much money, you know, they deserve this, they deserve that. This is for you. This is for all y'all. So keep that same energy for all of them, whether they go on strike or not. You better back the players, and I mean that from here until the end. Appreciate everybody who came on the show today. We got a lot of great comments in there. Miss Melissa, she had to run, but always good to see Melissa in the comments. Chris P., my initial brother, I see you out there, man. Again, I can't mention that, but go on ahead and throw that back for yourself one time. I feel you. Even if it's a Monday, throw that back. I don't know why he's hating on the Ravens. I have no idea why he would be hating on the Ravens with Steven on the show, but it is what it is.
Yeah, he's not serious, but we appreciate everybody that tapped in with us for this episode as well as this season. You can always go back and watch our episodes on YouTube. You can listen to them on any podcast platform. You can obviously follow Chris for his tweets on Twitter. You can obviously follow me for the same, as well as on my YouTube channel. A lot of stuff you can kind of look at through the season there if you want to kind of bridge the gap in the offseason. But yeah, like I said, man, thank all of y'all. We can't be us without y'all. So thank y'all for y'all continued and consistent support. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up for a like on this video and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel too. And let's enjoy this very, very eventful offseason to come.
It's going to be a lot. Shout out to Super Sarah Victor on the Wheels of Steel. Everybody at CHGO Sports. Once again, the All-City Sports Network has you covered, whether you're in Chicago, Philadelphia, Denver, Dallas, Phoenix, or beyond. We got y'all. We got y'all. We got y'all. Until next time, folks, be good and do great things. Keep your head above the clouds.
We all silly like the mayor.